Welcome to the Alcohol Reset, the podcast that helps you reset your habits, health, and relationship with alcohol without judgment or extremes. If you're looking to cut back, take a break, or just understand how drinking can affect your body and mind, you're in the right place. Each episode brings you science-backed insights on neuroscience, nutrition, and habit change to help you feel better, sleep deeper, and take control on your terms. I'm Mike Hardenbrook, best-selling author, neuroscience enthusiast, and habit change expert. I've helped thousands through my book and podcast to rethink their drinking, and now I'm here to help you do the same. Let's get started. So, picture this exact scenario. You are sitting at a table in a crowded, dimly lit room. Drinks are involved. Someone across the table makes a mildly funny comment about their commute, and suddenly, the entire group is crying with laughter. People are clutching their sides. You are struggling to catch your breath. In that specific moment, the comment feels incredibly funny. It feels like the best joke you have heard all week. But then the next day arrives. You wake up. You pour a cup of coffee and you remember the exact joke. You play it back in your head, waiting for the amusement to hit, but nothing happens. You realize the joke is actually about as funny as reading a tax return. So what actually happened there? Did the joke temporarily elevate to genius status in that specific moment, or did your brain simply alter the way it processes humor? I am Mike Hardenbrook, author of No Willpower Required and founder of Cloud9. Our exploration today is focused on unpacking the neuroscience of liquid comedy. We are looking directly at what alcohol is doing to your brain's judgment, social cues, and emotional reactions. Now, to understand why things get funnier when you drink, you first have to understand that finding something funny is a highly complex neurological process. Laughing is not just a simple reflex. To genuinely laugh at a joke, your brain must execute a series of complex tasks in mere milliseconds. First, you have to instantly understand the context of the situation and the baseline reality the joke is referencing. Second, you must detect the surprise or the incongruity in the statement, the exact moment the story shifts away from what you logically expected. Third, you have to process the social cues of the people around you to gauge the environment. Fourth, your brain evaluates whether the statement is actually amusing or if it represents a threat. And finally, your brain has to give your vocal cords and facial muscles the signal to act, deciding exactly how strong your physical reaction should be. This entire sequence requires intense, rapid coordination between three major areas of your mind. It needs your prefrontal cortex, which handles logic and analysis. It needs your limbic system, which is the area where you process raw feelings. And it needs the reward centers of your brain to dispense the chemical response. The catalyst here is that alcohol interferes with several of these brain systems simultaneously. It systematically shifts your brain away from a highly analytical processing state and forces it into an emotionally expressive state. Let us start by looking at the chemistry of lowered inhibitions. Alcohol immediately goes to work suppressing activity in your prefrontal cortex. This region is the executive control center of your mind. It is the area responsible for judgment, self-control, and social filtering. It is the part of your brain that constantly scans your environment and asks, is this appropriate? When alcohol suppresses this region, your internal filter weakens. Your self-consciousness drops significantly. This biological suppression directly lowers your laugh threshold. Because the self-monitoring function of your prefrontal cortex is operating at a heavily reduced capacity, your brain requires much less stimulation to trigger a laugh. You impulsively react louder and faster to things that are only slightly amusing. The baseline standard required for your brain to initiate a physical laugh is simply wiped away. But lowered inhibitions are really only half the story. The real reason that mediocre joke feels so genuinely hilarious is because you are experiencing amplified emotions via a massive chemical release. Alcohol impacts the reward system of your brain by triggering the release of dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter strongly linked to pleasure, motivation, and emotional reinforcement. When something mildly amusing happens while you're drinking, this dopamine flood artificially intensifies your amusement. It tricks your brain into experiencing a stronger, more rewarding reaction than the actual joke warrants. You are not just laughing. Your brain is receiving a powerful chemical reinforcement that makes the experience feel highly rewarding. That dopamine hit signals your brain to find more things funny, creating a cycle where your brain actively looks for the next excuse to release more dopamine. This is why a perfectly average moment feels genuinely hilarious. The joke did not improve. Your brain simply received a chemical response for reacting to it. As the drinks continue, alcohol causes a distinct, measurable shift from logic to emotion. Alcohol is a central nervous system depressant. It physically slows down the speed at which your neurons fire and communicate. This physiological change directly degrades your cognitive processing, weakening your critical thinking and analytical skills. Because your brain physically struggles to process subtlety, sarcasm, or irony under the influence, it abandons complex analysis. It begins to rely heavily on basic emotional and physical cues. This explains exactly why exaggerated physical comedy, changes in vocal tone, and simple, silly observations are highly effective when you're drinking. Conversely, complex jokes with multiple layers of meaning become completely confusing. To understand a complex joke, your brain must utilize working memory. That is the temporary storage system that holds the setup of a joke in your mind long enough to connect it to the punchline. Alcohol heavily impairs working memory. You literally lose the first half of the joke before the speaker reaches the end. Therefore, your brain shifts away from analytical evaluation completely and relies entirely on immediate, basic emotional reactions. To fully understand that laughing fit at the bar, we also must factor in the power of social contagion. You likely already know about emotional contagion. It is a documented psychological concept where humans unconsciously mirror the emotions and physical expressions of those around them. When you introduce alcohol, your brain's social responsiveness goes into overdrive. Because your prefrontal cortex is suppressed and you are no longer strictly monitoring your own behavior, you become highly susceptible to the immediate emotional environment. If one person at the table starts laughing, you and the others mimic the behavior much faster and more intensely than you would sober. The group laughter escalates rapidly due to a continuous social feedback loop. One person laughs, triggering another, which triggers you, which releases dopamine, which makes you laugh harder, which triggers the first person again. You're laughing largely because the people around you are laughing. You're caught in a cycle of shared chemistry, not reacting to the objective humor of the original comment. This exact mechanism explains the illusion of the funny drunk. We all know someone who suddenly acts like a professional stand-up comedian after they consume a few drinks. They dominate the conversation and seem to generate a lot of laughs. Alcohol boosts their confidence by reducing activity in the areas of the brain associated with fear and hesitation. This lowers the anxiety of speaking up at a group. Now, taking more social risks and speaking more frequently does not make these individuals inherently funnier or wittier. However, humor operates on a principle that heavily rewards risk-taking. It is just a numbers game. If a person tells 20 jokes instead of 2, something is bound to get a reaction. They receive more laughs simply because they are providing more material. The alcohol merely removes the fear of a joke failing, allowing them to take those social risks without hesitation. However, there's a very dark side to this neurological shift. While alcohol lowers inhibitions and boosts confidence, it simultaneously blunts your brain's ability to read subtle emotional cues and interpret social context accurately. This leads to those awkward situations where people think they are being absolutely hilarious while they're actually making the entire room uncomfortable. Their humor becomes louder, highly exaggerated, and often inappropriate. Because their ability to interpret subtle facial expressions, body language, and tone of voice is biologically compromised, they completely misread the reactions of the room. They continue to act on their own internal dopamine reinforcement, experiencing a strong chemical release, while completely missing the external social data indicating that the audience is not amused. They are trapped in their own altered reality, separated from the actual mood of the environment. Understanding this biological aftermath is essential for explaining the next morning. When you wake up the next day and the joke is not funny anymore, it is not just because you are sober. It is because your brain is completely drained of the chemicals it used to process the night before. Alcohol actively strains your neurotransmitters and strips essential nutrients from your body. Processing alcohol requires a massive amount of cellular energy, and your body depletes its nutritional reserves to handle the toxic load. This severe depletion in neurotransmitter strain directly causes the next day mental fog, the flat mood, and the lack of amusement you experience. As the founder of Cloud9, I looked very closely at the specific biology of these after effects. The mental fog is not a moral failing. It is a measurable chemical deficit. This is exactly why I introduced Cloud9's Daily Restore. This is not some unrealistic quick fix. It is dedicated, biological support designed for mindful drinkers to regain mental clarity and mood balance by directly addressing the specific biological deficits caused by alcohol consumption. We target this recovery by highlighting 2 highly specific nutrients. The first is vitamin B1, specifically utilized in the highly bioavailable form of infoshimi. Alcohol actively and aggressively depletes your body's thiamine reserves. Thiamine is absolutely mandatory for brain energy metabolism. Without it, your neurons cannot generate the energy they need to fire efficiently, leading directly to cognitive fatigue. Then infoshimi efficiently replenishes this specific nutrient, restoring the cellular energy required for sharp cognitive function. The second key ingredient is L-theanine. This is a specific amino acid that supports calm focus. After a night of drinking, your brain's neurotransmitters are often left in a chaotic state, struggling to find equilibrium. L-theanine directly balances your neurotransmitter activity without acting as a sedative. It helps your nervous system smoothly return to a stable, functional baseline state. clearing the fog and stabilizing your mood. To summarize our exploration today, alcohol does not magically upgrade the quality of a joke. It fundamentally alters the evaluation process of your brain. It achieves this temporary illusion through a combination of lowered inhibition via a suppressed prefrontal cortex, dopamine-fueled emotional reactions, a shift away from working memory, and a highly amplified social feedback loop. Sometimes it is not the joke that changed, it is just the chemistry. I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder on your own. The next time you find yourself crying with laughter at a bar over a completely mediocre joke, take a brief moment to observe the room. Ask yourself, are you really connecting with the people around you over a shared sense of brilliant humor? Or are you all just experiencing a synchronized chemical reaction? And if it is just shared chemistry, what does that actually mean for the way we build and maintain our social bonds? Thank you for joining me today. That's a wrap for today's episode. If you got something out of this, do me a quick favor, leave a rating and review on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. It helps keep the show going and would mean the world to me. Got ideas, comments, or questions? Shoot me an email at mike@trycloud9.com. I'd love to hear from you. And if you're looking for extra support, check out Cloud9, makers of Daily Restore, a once-a-day supplement to support your body from alcohol's effects, and Rise and Unwind AM/PM, a 24-hour combo to curb cravings, balance mood, and improve sleep when taking a break. Go to trycloud9.com and use the code PODCAST to save 15% on your next order. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.